My name is Katharine Arrigas, and I am here live at the Tennessee Bar Center, surprise, surprise, for another week of our legislative update. As always, I am joined by Berkley Schwartz, our Government Affairs and Public Policy Director, and today we are joined by an extra special guest, our friend, our boss, Joycelyn Stevenson, our Executive Director. Thanks for being here, Joycelyn.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So in the past few weeks, we have had different lobbyists come and talk to us that are TBA lobbyists as guests, and they've talked about what the process is like and what they do for us. And we realized we hadn't really talked to our number one lobbyist, Berkley, who's on staff here, and then also Joycelyn, who does play a significant role in what we do here, what we do, in every aspect here. So we thought we would, to sort of round out this sort of lobbying series, talk with both Berkley and Joycelyn and hear a little bit about what they do here, a little bit about their background, and how they contribute to our legislative agenda. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thursday afternoon, man. It's
comes around fast, doesn't it?
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to ask you both, and Joycelyn, you're our guest, so you can go first. Tell me about your background that brought you to the TBA and how your background kind of influences your work here.
How far back do you want me to go?
As far back as you want, maybe just recent, before,
Last 5 years?
Yeah, the previous 5 years or so before you came to the TBA.
Well, prior to taking on this role as the Executive Director, I spent 16 years in private practice at 2 law firms here in Nashville, practicing employment discrimination management side work, as well as some immigration work. I was a shareholder at my first firm. I was there for 12 years. Then moved to a new firm. I was there for a little bit over 3.5, just doing employment work, as well as some trainings, workforce investigations, things like that, which I loved. Outside of the actual practice, I actually did a lot of bar work as well, which was very important to me in my development as a new lawyer. So I was president of the Nashville Bar Association and also president of the Lawyers Association for Women here in Nashville. I'm serving on those boards for quite a while too. And I am a member of the 2008 TBAL, Tennessee Bar Association Leadership Law class.
Yeah,
so I've been involved with TBA for a while as well. So I had some experience, obviously practicing law, but also had some experience on the volunteer side from the board perspective before starting, which has been very helpful in taking on a role running the State Bar Association.
So Berkley, the same question. What was your life like before you came here? Because you guys came around the same time, actually, like give or take a few months, I think.
Yeah, I think it was like a year after.
Yeah, I started July 2017 when you started last year.
Yeah, January.
Yeah, so not maybe a year apart.
Right. So I'm from Mississippi originally. Go way back.
You went way back.
I was born on
I was born in Macon, Georgia.
First grade. No, I'm just kidding. When I graduated from law school, I went to, I practiced for a year, and then I moved to D.C. and worked on the House side and for a congressman from Georgia, and then went to work for the House Judiciary Committee and then the Department of Justice. And so that's sort of where I got my legislative start. And then I wound up going to work for the National Music Publishers Association as head of government affairs. I did that for 6 years. And then we moved, my family and I moved to Savannah, Georgia for a few years, which is where my husband's from. And I helped him with his, we worked together with our lobbying firm. And then moved to Nashville, and so I started working for the Secretary of State and Business Services as an attorney, and worked on different legislation there. And then I came here to the bar, which has been amazing, and I love it, and it's exactly what I wanted to do. And every day is challenging but fun. Not challenging because of the bar, but more challenging because of the.
It's okay. Hard work is hard. Yeah, it's okay to say that.
So to make these videos.
Well, okay, so I think everyone knows that my job here has very little to do with the actual legislation. I just am involved in communicating it to you and report on it. But I am a little bit of a political nerd, so I am interested in knowing your perspective, since you did work in D.C. and now you're at the legislature all the time. How does your experience working in D.C. differ from now working with the legislature here in Tennessee?
Well, it's interesting because in DC, even on the House side, you have big staff. So, I mean, there were definite members I knew personally, but for the most part, you had a staffer who was probably an attorney who would work on different issues, and that's the person you really dealt with primarily. And you had relationships with those people. They were around your age, which I was younger than I am now, and things took a while. I mean, it was a busy agenda. There was a long process. It was just a very methodical, slow process. And then what's different here is that here, the legislature's only in session for 5 months or more, and things happen quickly. In DC, you could introduce a bill all year all the time. Here there's a deadline. You have to have all the bills, and then that's your definitive list of bills. And then things happen really quickly, so once you get the bill, you pretty much have to figure out exactly where you are and start working on it, because the next thing you know, it could be before the committee, and the next thing you know, it's on the Senate floor and the House floor, and and last is that you're actually sitting down with the elected senator or representative to talk to him or her directly, which is different than a staffer.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I think it's exciting. I love to watch things happen and get to see real change happen, and and make the laws better and work that way. It's been great.
Yeah, the speed is a really interesting thing. I think a lot of people, if you're not used to following the Tennessee legislature, you read the news about what's going on in Washington, and you don't realize how quickly things turn around in the legislature here on the state level.
That's true.
So going to you, Joycelyn, so can you talk about, since you came here, what are some changes that you have made since becoming executive director that kind of have an effect on our legislative agenda?
Well, one of the biggest, and that's the first thing that I did, was hire Berkley. She's our first director of public policy and government affairs, and we had the recommendation of the board splitting the executive director and director and public policy arms into two different spaces. I think it's been very helpful for the bar. There's a lot that goes on in being executive director outside. If you don't believe me, it does. Outside of just government affairs, which is a huge part of what we do and such an important part. And having somebody that can focus full time on our government affairs needs, our government affairs team, and managing that process has been very, very critical. One of the other things that we did was to combine the section and CLE coordinator positions into one. We have about 33 practice group sections within the TBA, and traditionally we had a CLE coordinator that was separate from that coordinator. And so during my first year, we combined those into one role, and to have one person that's a continuous person that works with the sections, not only on their newsletters, their agendas, any kind of issues related to concerns that they had about the practice of law, also to running their CLEs and their forums. That consistent hand has been very helpful, and one of the ways that we are wanting to get sections more involved is to make sure that they are involved in our legislative agenda, have a voice. Many of them submit bills for legislation, and those are considered by Berkley and then provided as recommendations to the board. And even during the session, Berkley relies heavily on those sections to provide feedback in real time on issues that come up. And so creating an infrastructure that's more efficient, and I think hopefully helpful to Berkley and her process, is something that I thought was important from the beginning. And we've seen a lot of great uptick in our section membership, as well as in activities, in their involvement generally. So it's been great.
So Berkley, on that note, she mentioned that one of her first things she did was bring you on. Just to clarify, Berkley is actually on staff here with us every day, whereas the other lobbyists that we've spoken with through these videos, they have a outside role, and they sort of, I guess, a contract with us is a way to put it. So Berkley is actually here in the office with us on staff. So how does your position as staff, government affairs director, differ from what when we spoke with Clay and Brad? How's your job differ from?
So my job, we, the Tennessee Bar Association, we are their clients. So they're our outside lobbyists. So I give them direction, and we strategize together. So, but I'll say, okay, you know, I'm the liaison between the sections, the section coordinators, you know, and I say, okay, we've heard about this bill and we need to do this, and then we all make come up with the plan of like how to deal with it. So on the Hill, we do a lot of the same things. Brad and Clay both have their own relationships, you know, where they have people that they can just run by, text, do whatever, or we'll just schedule meetings, you know, however we decide to handle that, that's what we do. But it's, you know, I'm sort of like prioritizing, triaging, going through sort of like what needs to happen now, where we are, what we have left to do on our list, and then, you know, and then it'll be either the two of us and sometimes the three of us will go forth and do it.
And Joycelyn, you made a really good point, and I want to go back to it. But first, I think I've got a little error message on my phone, and I want to make sure it's cleared so we're getting good video. There we go. All right. So Joycelyn, yeah, you made a really good point earlier, just about how you do have a role in the legislative agenda, but when you came on as executive director, you kind of like split away from some of the direct involvement. So I did want to know, like, what is sort of the challenges? You're the executive director of this massive organization that does lobby, and then you're balancing that and the role that you do have with your myriad other duties. What is that like? What are the challenges?
What's it like? It's a lot of fun. I will say that. I mean, it's to Berkley's point. You can have your challenging days, but it's always something different, always something new. One of the reasons that I wanted this opportunity to have this job as executive director was to use my legal skills and background, but also my experiences, involvement in the community to affect change for lawyers in our community. And this is the perfect place to do that. It is with almost 13,000 members across the state with differing opinions and views. You know, can you imagine? Most offices have smaller groups and still have the same differing opinions. We have a lot of different and very passionate viewed members, and which is great. I think it's great. And my role is to create a process and an opportunity for those folks to be heard. Even if the board ultimately, you know, makes a decision that they don't agree with or that's a little bit different, ultimately trust in the process and that we care about all of our members from all across the state, and that we lobby and advocate for those issues, and even in those issues that we don't agree, we still come together and work for issues that are important for lawyers. And so I have members that will say, I don't like your decision on that, but I do like that, so you know, have you thought about this? And that's the best part, is when you get new ideas and different ways of doing things and thinking about issues. And so it can be challenging because you're trying to balance a lot of different people, and I don't know, we always get it right, but when we don't get it right, we correct it, and we always strive to be better. And the other duties are just so many. It's a whole other Facebook Live, but it's very great. You know, managing. I have great people that I work with, a great team, obviously, by YouTube being here, evidence of that. You know, also in the building, we do a lot of national and ABA type work. The Tennessee Bar is very well respected across the country and has a great reputation, and so my job is to maintain and keep that going. But also getting around the state. I want to go to all counties and be all members. So Berkley and I have been using legislative affairs and government affairs to reach out and do CLEs and different bar associations across the state, and that's been great to get them involved and figure out how we can use them in the future for other issues that might come up. So legislative affairs has been a great way for us to get people engaged because it affects everyone in some shape or form. And so I'm excited about just the future, and we have a lot of exciting things coming up in the next year that I think people will be excited about.
And just sort of on that note, how did you, kind of taking it back to where your background was, you came on at the TBA, how did you deal with that change of going from being just a private attorney? Obviously you were at a great firm and like you did have responsibility there to represent the firm, but now you're the face of attorneys in Tennessee for a lot of people. You're almost like an elected official or like a public figure. How did you deal with that transition, and what has that been like?
I'm still dealing with that transition. So it's a daily thing, but it's been great. It's wonderful to have. I love Tennessee. I'm not originally from Tennessee, but I've been here over 20 years, and I stayed here for many reasons. But the collegiality of our state and our bar is one of those reasons, and I really have enjoyed it. And you know, any questions or mentoring that I need, I can still get from so many people that are out there. And obviously having a wonderful team that was already here when I started the bar and that we've gained even since I've been here has been very helpful, because you have to have a support system to do that. So it is, every day is a challenge. There's something that, after I master it, I figure out there's something else I don't know, and so I have to figure out how to do it. But being a lawyer, and particularly a litigator for so many years, having to learn a different case every month, it's easier to do, but it's definitely sometimes challenging.
And on the similar note of sort of things you find challenging, you're a voice for lawyers at the legislature, and we sort of have you be that communicator. What do you find most challenging, and then also most rewarding about that role?
I think the most challenging thing is to sort of figure out what's the most important, because lawyers as a whole, they know a lot. And so I get a lot of feedback, which is good, and I need that, but I get a lot of feedback, and sometimes I have to, it can be a challenge to wade through that and see what's the most important thing, and what just do you think could be done better? Because we don't, we only have so much political capital and bandwidth, and there are many issues that lawyers care about. So I think part of the challenge is trying to figure out which bills are the most important, which ones should we focus on, which ones can we change, which ones do we just say we can't waste our time, this is they don't care, right, completely. And that's been, that can be hard, because it is a lot. I mean, we have our bills, and then as Brad and I and Clay talked about recently, we play defense on several bills. And when I say that, I mean, I think that our input as lawyers, because there aren't that many lawyers in the legislature. And I'm not saying, most people, it amazes me how much these legislators know about all these different subject matters that they have to know about. But for us, when you have lawyers and they're looking at the statute and they're like, this word, is used differently here, or we need to stay away from this, that's information that's going to make the law better, that I need to, take up there, let them know, help them, and so that we can amend it and make it, and our main thing is we don't want unintended consequences. You may be trying to do X, but unfortunately, Y is going to happen. And so that's that's the challenge, because there's a lot, a lot of different issues like that come up. And then the rewarding thing is usually when I go up and I try to explain these real life consequences, and say I can help, or this is what's going to happen, people listen, because it's the bar, and they want to know what we think, and they care, and
they seek out our opinion.
They do regularly.
That's testament to the reputation of the Tennessee bar. Is how respected it is within the state, obviously, but also with a lot of our leaders.
Absolutely.
We'll call and just say, "What do y'all think about this?" or "Is there an opinion on this?"
Right.
And the fact that they would do that means a lot to our members and to us as well.
It does, and too, because I'm not trying. I have no agenda. Our main agenda isn't to have to make one thing happen or make something else happen. I mean, we really are just trying to continue to practice law. Everybody in their own practice area, they want to make sure that something doesn't, adversely affect whoever their clients are. But specifically, just because we have people on both sides of every issue, and so we really come to it not trying to kill the bills, but really try to amend them, make them better, or just help people understand.
So I've got maybe a little bit more, if you don't mind if I squeeze one more question in. I wanted to ask you, there was something we talked about earlier, but I didn't. Just full disclosure, I gave them the questions beforehand. They had a cheat sheet. This one is not on your cheat sheet, but I do want to ask. I do want to ask both of you, just short, keep it short and sweet. But biggest surprise since you started working at the TBA?
Well, I'll say this. Having been a volunteer in several bar associations, or 2 bar associations before this one, and on taking on a staff role, I know that I don't think people fully appreciate all that goes into making things happen at the bar. I remember my first month, we do all of this with this small amount of people, and so it is amazing how much happens and what goes into one event, how many people are involved, and how much communication strategy is involved in it, how many meetings we have before that, and it's wonderful, and it's a great process, but I think most people don't really they don't see behind the curtain. They're not supposed to. But that, I think, probably surprised me the most, having come from being a volunteer for bar associations, now being on this side of it. It was a different perspective.
The biggest surprise for me is that I didn't know what to expect when, I started right when we went into session. And so I thought, what am I going to do when we're not in session? Like sit around, like,
5-month vacation.
Yeah. And so, I figured there would be work to do, but I was like, what will it be? And truly, even though the legislature is only in session, from January to May, we work on legislation all year long. Our lawyers are already scheduling meetings for June to talk about bills that were, didn't go anywhere, but that they want to sit down and make it work. So we've already got meetings scheduled this summer. We've got our convention in June. We have the rules, the Supreme Court rules.
Well, another part of your job, as a public policy piece of it, is also responding and or drafting petitions to the Supreme Court on rule changes.
Exactly.
And that happens all year round.
Yes,
and
it never
we get 3 or 4 or 5. And that requires also section involvement and the board involvement in that. So that's another aspect that we're growing in drafting our own petitions, joint petitions, but also responding to lots of petitions too. So it's busy, and then we start getting bills in, in September. So just be TBA, considered TBA initiatives. We have our board meetings, we have House of Delegates meetings. Joycelyn and I travel around the state and talk about government affairs. So. And that's just our joint schedule, not yet.
Right, exactly. So
no rest for the weary.
Yeah, that's right.
But lots of fun.
It is fun, and at least I know. I think you feel the same way. I like what I do. I like this. It's fun and interesting, and I like being a lawyer, representing lawyers. It's really cool to me because I can identify with that, obviously, and understand it.
All right, well, before we close out, I want to share something with you all. The 3 of us are all massive Game of Thrones fans. So now that I've got these 2 in the hot seat, I want to ask, seriously, Joycelyn was talking about the podcast she listens to. I get on Reddit, to be honest, to try to figure out what's going to happen. So I want to ask you guys, final question, who will end up on the Iron Throne when the season comes back into here just in a couple weeks? Who's gonna win the Game of Thrones prediction?
Sansa Stark.
That is an excellent prediction.
I agree. It's unexpected, but if you look at last season, she's grown from the first season and probably is the smartest person on the show. So I think Sansa Stark.
She is the smartest person.
I have grown to appreciate her character more over the years, but it's a out there wild card prediction, but we'll see.
I love her.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think Daenerys is gonna maybe win. I think she, really. I know she feels like it's her legacy, but she also wants to do it to help the people, and she's kind of proven that. And I think it's gonna get really bloody, and people we like are gonna die. Bloody, that's
this
shocking.
podcast is going a whole other direction.
But I think that who knows? I don't know. I mean, but. I don't pretend to know, but that's who I pretend.
Yeah. She feels she deserves it, but she also has probably earned it.
Right.
So that
and she kind
What do you
of
think?
wants to help people. Yeah, you tell us what you think.
I think that Daenerys is going to win, but she will install a representative democracy in Westeros.
See?
That's such a great.
I think that's great. I think you're very right.
Yeah, and then Tyrion could be her first like the new Senate they'll create, and Jon Snow can be a senator, and
I think he's gonna
get killed
for real this time.
Yeah, okay, that's probably
people
more likely.
Really like him. People like him; they don't want to see him killed.
Yeah,
so he will be.
All right. Well, fingers crossed for Jon Snow sticking it out because I like him very much. And thank you for being here with us, Joycelyn.
This has
taking
been fun.
time.
I was nervous, but I thank you for making me feel at home here.
Yeah, and as always, we will post this on YouTube a little bit after this. And we'll have a legislative update in tomorrow's TBA Today. So always read your Friday TBA Today.
That's right. And all our bills you can get on TBA Impact, which is found under Government Affairs tab on our website. And all of our bills are moving right along. So not much of an exciting update except that. Which is good news.
Yeah, no news is good news, I guess, in this case. And we will be back next Thursday with another update for you guys. So until then, see ya.